Raj, how are you?
I'm fine, Professor. How are you? Good to see you.
Good. Can you see me okay? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can see you okay. I can hear you okay. Good
All
to see
right. I guess it'll be you and we've got Koti, right?
Yes.
Did you guys meet with the city yet?
Not yet.
Okay. Well, feel free to invite me if you can to the session. I'll see if I can make it. I mean, it's downtown, I assume, right?
Yes.
Good. Okay. City Hall?
City Hall. Yes. Yes,
Okay.
Professor.
See if you can get a tour of City Hall. The roof of City Hall is a green roof. They actually have a very elaborate green roof system. It's part of their sustainability project. So
Okay.
it kind of links to what you're doing. How do you want to get started?
Yeah. Usually the case, you can start, Koti.
Thanks, Raj. Hello, Professor. Hello, Raj. Hope you're doing good. And Raj, do you want to start or should I?
Go ahead, Koti. No problem.
All right. Since you said, then give me a second.
I want to understand, did you guys first of all think this was a worthwhile project? Do you feel like you learned anything? Do you feel like you contributed to the city in any way?
Yes, Professor. I mean, definitely the opportunity was really great. The one thing was this was real life experience. So that was one thing that it is meaningful, whatever we learned. So essentially, if you see about my case, one was data collection, learning to know about the city, the culture, the understanding, the demographics, and then how do we kind of intersect with what we learned. So to give you an example, in the decision tools, we learned about forecasting techniques. So those kind of techniques and the approach which we kind of learned in our exam and in our MEM, we approached and we used in the day-to-day life, and also in city of Chicago sales numbers, and in forecasting what should be the possible, locations where we can position the optimal areas where we can position the charging station. So these are kind of examples which I wanted to communicate to you, and the project was really learning experience for us in terms of both meaningful, and also we can be proud of that we are contributing meaningfully to the society. So it's definitely a great project, Professor, and then thank you for arranging this situation.
No, I'm glad it came together because I want to do some more like this next year. In fact, I want to do something with the airport. I want to do something with the buses, about electrifying the buses. And, we've got those projects that are being queued up right now. I just want to make sure that if this wasn't successful, I don't want to repeat any mistakes, right?
Yes.
And if it was successful, I want to make sure we get the right recipe for next year. And I guess you both are going to be around next year, or you're both graduating?
Graduating, Professor.
We are graduating, but we'll be around for sure.
Okay. All right. I mean, it might be worthwhile to kind of brief the new students, whoever chooses to work on City of Chicago, to kind of get their input. And I think it's a little bit unfair that I probably should have given you some briefing on the history of Chicago, but like most cities in the US, there's always kind of a racist or racial undertone or overtone, if you will. Why is the city laid out the way it is? And why are there pockets of poverty? Why are there pockets of crime? Why are there pockets of poor schools, poor transportation? We have transportation deserts, we have food deserts, we have education deserts, right? And if you look at it, do a cluster analysis, you'll say, well, it's the South Side, it's the West Side, it's here and it's there. And it's just like, why? How did this happen? And it's a legacy to redlining. It's a legacy towards how the city evolved over the years. And I think that is part of, believe it or not, I think the scope of this project, to say, how do you make it more equitable? How can you make the transportation options, more available to everybody, right? The idea, I guess, that most people have, EVs are too expensive. Only rich people own them. Well, that might have been true, but I think we're seeing very soon, very quickly, EV options that are very affordable. And actually, EVs save people money, which is the irony, right? I'm too poor to save money, right? Well, you're too poor to waste it. And this is the contradiction, I think, that is kind of buried in this project. And with that, I'll let you guys take it from here.
Absolutely. Very rightful insights, Professor. And before I start, I actually would love to extend my appreciation for bringing this such amazing projects to MEM grads and giving me an opportunity. And I completely resonate with what Raj has been telling about how the MEM curriculum has inculcated skill development in us, where we are looking into problem solving, how to break the whole structure and try to get everything, and especially the forecasting methods and marketing. In the marketing, how we actually do research, and all the case studies that we have read, how all the readings that we have done, right, which helped us in going back and researching in different various sectors like IBS.world and every other places. And without further ado, I'll start the project, my presentation. And so the agenda for the presentation is, first we have a background, then a market overview, and our scope of the project, and the approaches that we can take, and say the policies that the current cities and the city of Chicago has taken, and how we are comparing with them, and potential solutions and conclusion. So coming to the background, so we all know that transportation department and transportation sector has been one of the highest cause of greenhouse gas emissions in the cities, and major contributor for bad air quality. And City of Chicago has always been trying to explore new avenues to foster new business models where they can extend their ways into electric charging vehicles, and also adoption of electric vehicles. And City of Chicago had a goal of completely electrifying the bus fleet by 2040, and it usually does not. And they fixed on a goal, and they did not have any roadmap as such for that. And this is when we come into picture as a Northwestern grads and try to find solution for us. And in addition to that, electric vehicles have the adoption of electric vehicles can increase a lot of job opportunities and improve public health with respect to health qualities and health qualities. And coming to the overview of the current infrastructure, give me a second. I'll put it here. Yeah. Yeah. City of Chicago recently has launched all electric buses. They're looking into launching everything. And while I was looking into the data and researching, I have realized that normally a passenger or a people commute at 22 miles on average of 22 miles, and this is within the range of travel for anyone. And as per Chicago data portal, right, currently we have, as of May, very new, very recent data, we have 7,725 EVs on road right now, and approximately 450 charging stations. That includes level 2 and level 3 charging stations. And charging spots. And there are companies like ChargePoint, Tesla, Blink, Charge America, and a few other companies who have been implementing and trying to grow in the city to extend their charging facilities for this thing. So why is charging framework is the need of the hour right now? Because the charging, EV charging and the EV sales go hand in hand, and which in turn means that the promotion of EV adoption and supporting transportation principles and the safety and accessibility. And EV charging framework gives wonderful opportunities to grow economically, economic development of middle class and lower middle class people to start and getting into this business, where the setting up the cost for level 2 charge and few other avenues in this thing, it gets easier. And it reduces, of course, the elephant in the room. It reduces the carbon footprint and the scarcity of fossil fuels and rising prices. Everyone knows about the imports are already declined, and we are actually trying to thrive in this, in getting EV adoption. So, as a forecast of metrics, we are trying to see how many EVs will there be in 2030. In that sense, we'll actually backtrack everything and try to, once again, my bad. Yeah. So yeah, we'll backtrack from 2030, we'll backtrack and create a roadmap in reverse engineering way. And from Illinois Public Interest Research Group has estimated that approximately 88,000 EVs will be available, will be on roads in Chicago by 2030. But when I have checked the City of Chicago portal from 2017 to 2022 April, I've seen a consistent growth of 3% month on month, month. And with respect to that and the calculations, I see that we can, in the best case scenario, we can reach up to 1.150K electric vehicles by 2030. And considering this and considering the PIGR's 88,000 EVs can be a pessimistic one, and 154K can be an optimistic level. So in the middle range, we can strongly rely and lean on 110,000 EV on roads by 2030. And coming to this, while addressing this 110K EVs on road, currently this is the map of charging stations here. It looks cluttered. But what happens in real life is, in an ideal situation, any user who has an EV ideally doesn't have to travel more than 0.7 miles to get their charging done on a level 2 or a DC fast charge. That's an ideal in a perfect world. So right now, as I see this maps, right, whenever I try to do a geospatial analysis, I see that there are at least almost 1.5 miles to 2 miles of distance on average between different charging stations. And of course, there's the need of more charging stations in the land of Chicago. And the second aspect is all the markings that I've shown, it's basically this part is of O'Hare and the surroundings of O'Hare, and this is the Loop and the Chicago mainland area. And all these charging stations are for the EVs, electric vehicle cars, and it does not account to the electric buses or the electric buses vehicles and this thing. So when we do that,
can we take a pause here? Because I mean, I just did a simple query: how many registered automobiles in the state of Illinois? It looks like there's 4.5 million of them, right? Do we know how many are actually just regular vehicles, right? Just regular vehicles.
Oh,
how many are actually how many vehicles are registered in the city of Chicago? Do we know?
Oh, give me a second. I think I have the data here.
Because 88,000 seems like a very small number. It seems to me like, you know, I know we're starting at 7,000. Frankly, that number seems a little small too. I can't help but think that, you know, if you think about penetration, you're assuming linearity. You're taking linear approaches, 3% growth, right?
Yes, a linear 3% growth. On a CAGR.
What if it's exponential? What if the growth is exponential?
Oh, my bad. When I say this, right, I believe I might have got confused. I meant CAGR. So it's a cumulative growth of 3% every month. So that in turn means that it will grow on at least 48%, 46%.
Per year.
Sorry, my bad.
Per year.
Yeah, 36%. And according to the US reports, a few media reports, we also noticed that there is we are expecting at least 25 to 30% of growth going forward. So assuming in that sense, that's when I said 110K would be the number that we can lean on this thing. When we see that there are only 7,725 EVs on road as of now, according to Chicago data portal.
Got it. Okay. All right.
This was our base point. So, and yeah, so all these public stations, right? This does not electrify buses. And in that sense, and the first goal of City of Chicago was to 100% electrification of electric buses by 2040. So in order to see that, I've taken a few strategic places where it can be strategically placed, which are basically the halt and the places where the buses park overnight as a rest period. And these are the few places, top four places where I have noticed that they have a huge land where the buses can put, and we can put. There's a possibility of DC fast charger, DC fast charger, and all this thing. And currently, City of Chicago has around 1,864 buses with 129 routes, and they travel like every day. They travel around 161K miles, 161,000 miles, and on an average, each bus travels at least 86 miles. So when compared to this, right, in the operational aspect, we are as these level 2 charge, like our level 2 charges would be inexpensive as of now, compared to the level 3 DC fast charge, and that can be rotated on a rotatory basis, can be strategically placed in the major sectors, which is O'Hare Bus Shuttle Center and Harvard CTA. These are the two major places where it can be put, and the rest can be 100%. Well, once this is strategically placed, all this electric vehicle charging stations are placed. We can, we can rely on. We can be ready for any new changes that can happen in 100% electrification of this 1,864 buses in next coming years. Yes.
So time out again, but I guess a level 2 charger only dispenses energy at somewhere between 7 and maybe 11 kilowatts. Okay.
Yes, up to 15 kilowatts, and it might take around 12 hours to 10 to 12 hours for a full charge. So that's one of the reasons where buses usually don't function between 12 to 6 a.m. in the morning. So in that senses, I was actually saying that, and
so you can only deliver something like 60 kilowatt hours or thereabouts in those 6 hours, right? So are they going to be able to drive 86 miles or thereabouts per day and only use 60 kilowatts? What's the efficiency of a bus?
So, okay. That's a question
that's the ultimate question. Are you going to run out of energy before the end of the day, right?
True. So, as for that, the efficiency of the bus should be targeted more than, of course, 86, but at least for the safe side, at least 150 plus on the safe side should be put. And that's one thing when I think right now. And apart from that, yeah, the level 2 charges in the initial phase, because the goal is to get electrified in 2040, so which is again 17 years from now. So they will be strategically placed where the DC chargers will help them in the fast charging, and the level 2 chargers will help in the operationally lean time, wherever whoever has enough lean time to just stay there.
And intuitively 86 miles is not a lot of distance. The problem is there's a lot of stop and go, and obviously with stop and go you have regenerative braking, so the buses are charging themselves as they progress down the street. I know that when I went high speed in my long distance trip this last weekend, I was averaging something like 2 miles per kilowatt hour. In the city, that my car gets about 4 miles per kilowatt hour. Okay. I think you're going to be in a little bit of trouble if you don't get at least 2 miles per kilowatt hour of efficiency out of these buses. That's my point. So I think you're going to have to decide, first of all, which buses are we talking about? BYD sells buses. There's all these different companies that make buses. Which buses are we talking about? Are we talking about normal high capacity? Are these the articulated ultra high capacity buses? Or are these the smaller compact buses that BYD tends to sell? I don't know which way CTA is going. I mean, CTA might actually decide they want smaller buses because there's actually fewer. Have you noticed there's fewer people on the bus? So do they want smaller buses that make, their rounds more often? Or do they want bigger high capacity buses because they have staffing shortages? I don't know which way they're going. And I think that's the kind of discussion you would need to have. I mean, so that you can target a bus, specific type of bus, size, brand, type of energy? Is it lithium ion, lithium iron phosphate? What's the technology underlying that bus, right? And this is exactly where I think MEM has a sweet spot here. You guys are engineers and you're business people, and you can combine those together in a way that other folks can't, right?
Absolutely. Makes sense. And what I have noticed also is that since the plan is for a very long time, right, they're still having a multiple options, and which might deviate a lot going forward also. So, but yeah, what you made complete sense, and I made a note and I'll look into that.
Yep.
Yep. And pivoting towards the EV, so this is the plan for the electrification of buses, and pivoting towards the EV infrastructure across the ecosystem. These are the few user segments that I would like to see there, and the charging stations that can be done. This is the framework of segmentations of in what way each of this EV infrastructure can put. And the second thing is the EV charging ecosystem. So one of the interesting facts that I have seen how big the EV charging ecosystem can be and will be in the coming days, where when you notice here, the property owners and these are the different type of stakeholders that they are there right now, and what are the incentives they have and how they can help out. One of the interesting parts I have seen is workplace property lease, where they can actually lease out their parking spots to the host companies, hosting charging stations, where employees will be interested and will be pushed a bit to get into EVs, and which also helps in green brand image and branding protection for them. This was one of the interesting things that I've seen. And another interesting part that I've seen was the advertisers. So EV charging work frame, I see that we talk about the cost reduction and the break-even point, which is it takes a lot of time to get break-even point and the reaching out the revenue system. So advertising has been one of the interesting aspects of the charging stations, where the charging stations owners basically can actually rent out and give out the advertisement space, and also create new small businesses like small cafes or any on-demand services that whatever they ask, like a concierge services for the 30 minutes or 45 minutes that they stay in there. So these are a few things that I've seen interesting. And
so the company that's doing that is called Blip. The Blip Energy boys, they're the ones that are doing a lot of that advertising model. I think there's different ways of monetizing charging. True. And a lot of it is just wrapped around selling a kilowatt hour. And what's that cost? It's somewhere between 30 and 50 cents a kilowatt hour. Sure. But I mean, in some cases, like the property owner, they absorb that cost because they want to keep their tenants happy, as you said. I did look up, and by the way, the buses are averaging about 1 kilowatt hour per kilometer. So that's roughly 1 kilowatt hour per half mile. Yeah. So what that means is if you're driving 86 miles, you're going to need 168 kilowatt hours, which level 2 cannot deliver overnight. So you have either a couple of choices. Can you partition the battery so that you can charge it from multiple directions and multiple chargers, right, in a single bus? Or you're going to have to do DC fast charge, which is going to be very expensive infrastructure. Very expensive. So, I mean, that's going to be the trick. I think we've got examples in China that they've been running, buses, electric buses for years, and we can benchmark them to say, how are they charging their buses? Is it DC fast charge? Is it multiple level 2 chargers? Do they have some sort of segmented battery? That would be the question, right?
Yes, absolutely makes sense. Absolutely. Okay. And coming to the level 3, different types of chargers to just for an informative this thing, which is already explained, and which is self-explanatory here right now. But at the installation, the installation of level 3 charges is almost $100,000, which is super expensive, and it takes a lot of time to get back the money, and which is one of the major reason why people the gas stations or the owners of the upcoming electric vehicle stations are still hesitating in putting number of stations there. So I had a chance to talk to one of my acquaintance who owns a gas station in Atlanta, a gas station with a small lottery shop and a grocery store, where I've straight up asked the question why they are not interested, because Atlanta is one of the leading electric vehicle hub spot. Georgia State has a wonderful initiatives and all this. So the one thing that I have understood is level 2 charges would not be, people would not be happy with the level 2 charges because they want swift chargings like Tesla and Electrify America gives. And the second thing is as most gas stations are owned by how do I put this? A bit of financially a bit stable, not luxuriously ready to invest money in it. So the rate of returns is very low, and it takes a lot of years. Of course, everyone agrees that electric vehicles are the future, and the charging stations are the need of the hour and this thing, but the cost of entry is expensive and the rate of returns is very low. So that's one of the reasons why they are still hesitant. This is one useful information that I've got. And the rebate that Georgia State gives is hardly $4,000 of a tax rebate when compared to the actual cost of almost $100,000 plus the permits, and it takes a lot of days to get the permissions and every actions that they're needed. So
I think you'd have to talk to ChargePoint, but I know that ChargePoint operates DC fast chargers along the major interstates. I just used one a few days ago that was at a Shell station. It was a gas station. Okay. So the gas station allocates a piece of their property. And I don't know if they charge rent to ChargePoint or if ChargePoint buys or subleases that property. Then they have to run the power, and of course they need heavy power. They need 3-phase power to that location. Therein lies much of the cost. Okay, so that 100,000 you're talking about, roughly, sometimes half of it is just getting the power and the transformers in location to support the EVSE, right?
True.
And then the EVSE itself can be $40,000 or $50,000. So you're talking about a lot of pieces, and I think some of it's funded by ChargePoint. Some of it is funded by the gas station. And I think you have to tease out, well, what is the real ROI to the gas station, right? Do they increase the traffic? Is there more people going to that station, right? Does that generate other income in their shop, in their store? Are they buying groceries? Are they buying other things while they're waiting for the car to charge? So these sorts of models for business modeling, right, need to be put into your analysis so that we can understand who's paying for what here, right? The property owner versus ChargePoint versus the government. The government is probably going to fund DC fast charge at a higher level than level 2. I might be wrong, and I don't know if Georgia is any different from Illinois, right?
Yeah.
We have to, see the government with the new money coming in from the federal government that was just authorized. Is there going to be DC fast charge money? And how is it going to be allocated, right?
Absolutely. And moving to the EV charging hardware, we see that these are the 4 types of EV chargers that there are, and pedestal and mounted chargers are mostly level 2, including street charger, and most of the Teslas are level 3, and of course there are a few other fast charging stations. And so this is the graph that I could find where it explains the time of how long would it take and what type of charges would actually make sense and where it falls in place. So while doing this, I moved into saying what are the barriers of electric vehicle supply equipment's investment and adoption. So what could be the major reasons? So one of the reasons that I have explained about my experience with one of the gas stations is high upfront cost, uncertainty in utilization, and the complex installation and does it need additional management or is it self-sufficient? These are another issues, and complex ownership and revenue model, like you have explained, who takes the which piece and the charge point or the gas station and the government, how does it all fall in place? So this is how this framework that I could find, and I could formulate in a way where I see the issues and what I personally see as a strategies that can actually address these barriers is to adopt home-based charging stations, because most of the time the vehicle stays at home where it can actually be charged. So the adoption of home-based EV chargers is very important, and which leads to a couple of more negative aspects of that, which I'll be explaining in a couple of minutes in a couple of slides. And the public charging stations lead to what do you say, EV adoption, and when it is precisely and targeted in the right ways. And the market readiness of EVSE and the adoptions take a lot of years. So what happens is, if you do something now, the results will be coming in next 5 or 7 years. But yes, this is the time that you need to wait and to gain the exponential rise in the returns in the future. So when I see this, right, I saw the policies of city of Chicago and Illinois. So recently, electric vehicle charging station rebate has been launched, and they have said that any level 2 or DCFC charging stations will be given 4,000 rebate from July 1st, 2022. In a month, it'll start this. And the second thing is there's a tax credit. Whenever for the manufacturers and the EV charging stations people, so that they can adopt and manufacture from the city of Chicago and Illinois. The one interesting aspect that I have seen was battery electric vehicle fee. So which I could not get any information from the customers as of now, but yeah, from the news that I have read and from the internet, right, I see that there's $100 additional charges, which is basically a penalty for doing something good for the environment, which I found very hypocritic, this part and this one part. And
so here's the issue here. The issue is that with registration, the registration fees ostensibly are here to offset the fact that battery electric vehicles don't use gasoline. Buried inside gasoline pricing is taxation for road maintenance. Yeah. So if the battery electric vehicle owner is not paying for road maintenance, how can you extract that money from them? This was the answer, to penalize them when they register their vehicle.
Yeah, but
which is the opposite of what they did 4 years ago when they first started. They were giving battery electric vehicles huge discounts in registration. So their policy in Illinois has swung from, rewarding the
it's like
EV
a pendulum,
owner
I believe,
to punishing the EV owner, right?
Yeah,
we've gone from one extreme to the other. $4,000 is ridiculous for. Is this public charger or is this a private charger?
It's for private charging companies. For the public, of course, it's the government who will be funding it. So for everyone, for any private DCFC charges, right? I saw that. One second, I have the link too.
So if I put a level 2 charger in my garage that I use, but for my own purpose, I can get $4,000.
Oh no! I believe it's for commercial use for sure.
For commercial use,
okay. Commercial, yes. To just making sure that
$4,000 is a trivial amount unless it's for level 2 only. But
yeah,
DC fast charge, this barely covers 5%, right?
Exactly. So for level 2 charges, it's a wonderful deal, and in fact, it's overboard, to be honest. But yeah, it completely makes sense that it's for only commercial purposes. But yeah, in that sense also, yeah. And coming to the cities that we are talking about, the Georgia state was one of the interesting cities that I have found, where the individuals have at least 20% of a tax credit up to $5,000, whoever has a full electric vehicles. And in 2015, they gave a $500 rebate for level 2 chargers, which makes sense, which we just discussed. And this is for both house owners, like homeowners, and private sectors. And the plug-in vehicles with appropriate. This is one of the interesting one where the plug-in vehicles, whoever has EV vehicles, can actually use the HOV, high occupancy lanes, and which without even the occupancy, without the occupancy too. And I have been, this is something I have also experienced in the state of Washington, where like I personally traveled in a HOV lane in an electric vehicle with just 2 people. So yeah, the second aspect and the third and the final aspect here is they have special time of use rates. They have additional electricity rates in Georgia, where they charge electric vehicle homeowners in a different pricing strategy compared to the other thing. And when I moved to New York, one of the busiest streets, and they always struggle to get parking spots and everything. So I have realized, I've seen that they give a tax credit of $7,500 for EV, and New York State Department is discounting 10% for all EV vehicles in all tolls, tunnels, and throughways, and everywhere. There's a discount in the toll fare. And from 2013, since 2013, New York also implemented a house building code. I think that's the word. For EV ready station, that every apartment and every garage they are building, they should have at least 20% of spots completely dedicated to electric vehicles. So this is one of the nicest, good initiative. But 3.1 kilowatt charger is a bit low, but it's a start. It was a start. So yeah. And Los Angeles,
I've got double that at home. I mean, my home charger is twice as fast as that. Right?
True. So from the text and from the research that I've done, it says at least 3.1. But yes, from the house, I believe we can get up to 7 kilowatt per hour. Yeah. Yeah. And in Los Angeles and San Francisco, basically California state, we have also seen that any new buildings that are built or that are worked upon needs to have 100% EV charge points in the new buildings. And this is one interesting aspect, that like 100% EV charging points might be a bit extreme, but which actually gives one of the major reason why California is one of the biggest EV market right now. And they also have a small subsection. If they have one fast charger, that can substitute into 5 EV ready spaces can be removed, and they can be used in the other gasoline vehicle stations, and which also helps in DCFC charging adoption, which in turn again the faster chargers and the adoption rate increases. And another interesting part was the California continued with vehicle charging stations and giving permissions for the vehicle charging stations and permits and legal obligations within 10 days, 5 to 10 days, and the application process takes 5 to 10 days, and the approval process finishes in 20 to 40 days, which is as far as I've compared with a few other articles, right? This is one of the fastest place where they can get immediately approved, the fastest way of approval. And coming to the revenue of the charging stations, right? The most, in my personal opinion, and including the research, right? I see that believing in getting a break-even point from only users as a payment is not possible. So there are indirect ways of revenues that are implemented, like advertisements and cafes and shopping malls, implementations, and few more. This would in turn help in. These are the major concentration that the EV owners and charging owners should look into it, and there are a few metrics that they need to track too. So one of the interesting, so these are the few metrics, like utilization metrics, penalty time to see how the parking behavior is in the city of Chicago, charging duration and the time the plugged in and turnaways, sustainability to track how much carbon footprint is saved, and which also helps in global policies that the nation United States is following right now in order to reduce the climate changes, and ratio of revenue to the cost and new seasons and other people. So coming to the recommendations, so I believe the gap between adoption and the deployment of charging infrastructure in the United States is closing, but there's still a lot of work to be done. The setting up stations, charging stations in bus depots to be prepared for the 100% electrification of public buses. Best way to grow EV sales is to launch building codes for Chicago, to get building codes where the charging stations are in home, and which also in turn helps in getting few other policies, and expedite the process of EV charging station permits, promote local businesses and EV charging stations with rebates and supports. So better rebates and supports, and also build an application or vertically integrate charging stations and public charging station applications in Vendra or City of Chicago CDOT application, including the payments and everything, not just showing the map and where the charging stations are, but everything should be end to end, which can help in easier adoption with technology. In conclusion is, electric vehicle for sure will overhaul the light vehicle transportation coming decades, and charging infrastructure can be shared with the interested stakeholders. There are multiple, from the EV ecosystem, the EV charging ecosystem that we have seen, that there are multiple stakeholders, and everyone will have to be contribute into this thing. All you need is a right bridges of someone to build right bridges to get everyone into the one place, and limited access. Currently, there is a limited access to home charging, which is one of the major barriers. So, a tax rebate in city of Chicago and Illinois state can actually help in bringing new advances, and on-street charging points. On-street charging points is one of the interesting aspects because the city of Chicago has a lot of on-street parkings in the outside of the loop side, and which can help in do this. And even a level 2 charger would help from the charging station, because people usually park for at least 3 to 5 hours. So that can help give them a bit of charging stations, and pass EV ready building code, and exemptions of fees and tolls, and remove that $100. In my personal opinion, again, remove that battery electrified vehicle tax, additional taxes, and promote EV adoption with giving more incentives. Right now, maybe they can government, of course, always swings around, and later after 5 years or 7 years, they can always come back and take everything that they have lost till date. But right now, they have to cut down and try to be more flexible. So thank you, Professor. This is the end. And I forgot the thank you slide, but yes, thank you, Professor. And
Okay, thank you. I don't know, Raj, did you have a presentation, or were you just supporting what Koti just presented?
No, Professor, I have a separate, because we have been working in two different aspects.
Yeah.
Koti has been mostly on the revenue and the policies per se, and mine was more on the analytical side. So I'll be presenting my slides and showing my updates as well.
All right, Raj, over to you.
Yes.
I hope you can get it done in 15 minutes, because I think Koti just chewed up 3/4 of our time.
I'll try to be slightly paced out, but request you to give me some more time, because I have a couple of slides close to 40, but I'll try to run soon and try to finish in at least 20.
Apologies, Raj, and apologies, Professor. I was just going, it's a final presentation, so I was going brief.
Got it. Okay. Raj, take it away.
Yes, please. Just let me know, Professor, when you're able to see this.
I'm ready. Go ahead.
Okay. So good afternoon. I'll start my presentation. So I have arranged the agenda in these manners. We'll be talking about project overview, the city of Chicago, the current situation, and then to help with the transportation and the future roadmap of the EV of Chicago, what should be the framework? We need to understand what are the current scenario and where we are heading towards, so that city of Chicago could plan their investment and their projections in a way that really makes sense, and where we are heading in. What should be the design guidelines when we are considering the city of Chicago EV charging station designs? What are the different charging standards which are available? The parking and signages which will influence those things, and then the final EV framework conclusion. So that's the whole presentation which I have arranged in this manner. The project overview we discussed, so I will not spend much time. Essentially, the summary here is the city of Chicago wants to create a EV framework that will outline the city's approach towards vehicle electrification over the next decade from 2030 till 2040. So that's the overall target which they have taken. And by 2040, their goal is to transition to a complete 100% electric, which we'll be seeing whether it is possible or not in coming slides. So we started somewhere in April 1st, and then by 3rd of June, we wanted to complete. So that's the overall project schedule, which is showcased here with a lot of other deliverables, which is already there. So the first aspect or the first section is City of Chicago's infrastructure landscape. So as we can see that what I have done here is from 2017 till 2022, all the EV of Chicago's month-on-month sales is being consolidated both by community-wise and by zip code-wise. Currently, what we could see is the 606 series, which are starting, is classified under City of Chicago. And we have 77 zip codes in total, which are being mentioned in different aspects under City of Chicago. So to showcase here, what I was trying to consolidate here is where is the the current landscape and where are the electric vehicles being purchased here and where they are registered. So we can see here is every community in City of Chicago has a registered EV, and every zip code also has a registered EV sale under each aspect. But from a public charging perspective, if you see, only 45 out of 85 zip codes which we have today have the public charging stations, and rest do not. And most of the public chargers are located in only 3 or 4 communities or the zip code. So essentially, it's a concentration on specific areas which is being followed. Though we can see from a zip code wise, they are segregated in 45, but essentially there are 3 or 4 communities only which are being indicated here. So what are those communities in Chicago? So what are the communities in Chicago? The communities in Chicago are Lincoln Park, Loop, West Side. So essentially, areas which are very concentrated to the bank are the areas where you can see there are high concentration of public charges. And also from the demographic point of view, those are the areas which are slightly on a richer side. On the extreme north or the south side, based on equity, these areas doesn't have much charges, which is one of the key takeaways which we can take it from this slide. Now, the second aspect was, okay, now that we understand there are 45 zip codes which we have different public charging stations. So I also wanted to check based on the different zip codes, where are they being concentrated? So if you can see here, total 259 charging locations we have in City of Chicago, and 601, 606, 607, and 6011 are the areas where there are much concentration of zip codes in City of Chicago, which are more than 15 in number. The others are less in number. So the areas where you can see 606, 22, 25, 26, these are areas which need more concentration or more focus, so that we can have an equitable approach in terms of offering the public charging stations at these locations to boost the EV sales as well. So the next option was I'll just skip this slide because we discussed where are the concentration. So the next option for us was, okay, now that I understand what is the level of distribution, the second aspect was I wanted to also understand what is the type of charging being offered in City of Chicago specifically. So in City of Chicago, if you see, we have predominantly level 2 charging being offered, and 622 is the number which I'll be discussing in later slides. So there are level 1, level 2, and DC fast charge. So only level 2 is the predominant one, and level 1 and level DC fast charge are not much being included in the City of Chicago's charging mix, which I'll be showcasing in my coming slides. So the next option was, now that I understand that level 2 charging is predominant, what is the service provider which is offering? So as we already discussed, Professor, ChargePoint Network is a dominant EV service provider, which is offering more than 275 plus ChargePoint networks across City of Chicago. There are other companies or other service providers as well, but predominantly is the ChargePoint network. The 622 in numbers of the level 2 charges, we could see 96 numbers are DC fast charge, and only 2 numbers are level 1 charges. So that's the current charging mix which we could see in City of Chicago as well, based on different service providers which is being distributed here. Whether this is good or whether it is bad is a question which we see. But as a general recommendation, which I wanted to see, is we should have more and more players coming in so that the dependence on one particular network is avoided. And we can have a much better competition and variety, both in terms of economics and in terms of offerings as well. So now that we understand what is there, the next option for me was to understand where we are heading towards in the future. So essentially, I started with EV sales in the city of Chicago, and month on month, I tracked from November 2017 till February 22, what is the current sale. So we are landing somewhere at 7,400 in number as on date on May 2022. And the estimated growth rate, which I could see annual, was coming to 38% in number, with a median of 2.76% and an average of 3.23% growth rate for the EV sales. So with that as an assumption, on Jan 30th, 2030, we could estimate that city of Chicago will have 93,540 EV sales. How does that number compare with the overall numbers, which we were just discussing a couple of minutes ago, Professor? So Illinois has 11.2 million vehicles as on date, which is on May. And out of that, city of Chicago has 1.4 million IC engine vehicles registered and 7,410 EV vehicles as on May 2022. So you could see roughly, I guess, 8 to 9% is the contribution in the city of Chicago compared to the vehicles which we have. I think 0.8, excuse my numbers here. So that's the number currently we have for the EVs compared to the IC engines, and this number should grow in the next 10 years. So that is the kind of a growth rate which we are targeting to bypass and electrify city of Chicago by 2040. So with that as a context, the same growth rate of 2.76% was taken today. And I wanted to match and see where we are today and where we should be in the next coming 10 years or 8 years. So today, as on May 2022, 720 numbers are the public charging stations today in city of Chicago. So we would be needing at least a number which is 8,813 in number, so that we can match or at least satisfy some of the demands which will be arising by 2030. So there is a broader assumption in the EV industry. If you can see here, generally for at least one public charging, should be there for every 10 EVs on an AC charging, and then at least one DC charger should be there for every 100 EVs. So that's the general norm. And I wanted to understand where we are as a city of Chicago. So 10.3 is the current AC charging station ratio which we have today for city of Chicago, and 77:1 for DC charging. What does that mean? It means that we need more charging stations for the AC. From a DC perspective today, it seems okay, but it is not sufficient as the number gets projected. So essentially the message is very clear that more and more public charging stations are needed as we progress in the future. So as I was mentioning, what is the correct charging mix? The correct charging mix would be for single family houses, parking garages, and apartment buildings, which will constitute close to 6 hours or more of charging time, and targeting 15 to 20 kilometers per hour of charging. We should target slow charging at home and at work. At fast and slow public charging areas can be targeted at hotels, restaurants, and shopping malls, which will constitute to 40 to 50 kilometer hours of charging. And DC fast charge, of course, should be targeting 200 to 300 kilometers per hour of charging in maybe position in highways, transportation hubs, which will charge in less than 30 minutes or close to 30 minutes. So that should be a charging mix. Any city should target, and city of Chicago should kind of also target in something similar in terms of charging mix from an infrastructure perspective. So now that we understand what is the current scenario and where we should head, the next option for me was to understand what is the design guidelines we should target. So for any charging station design, there are a few critical parameters which need to be considered in the charging station. So the first and foremost thing is, of course, the bold eye or the bold colors, which means it should be catchy, and anybody who is traveling, who was new to the city, should be able to catch and understand that this is a charging station available. It should be properly lit. It should grab the attention. Definitely, it should have a good stature. All the cords and cables should be included, and nothing as such should be assumed that the customer will be bringing any of the cords and cables from his side. The holders and the respective, tripping hazards and the wires of the ground should be maintained, which is the basic hygiene. Then the clear written instruction should definitely be there for any of the charging stations which is being installed in United States. Pricing information is very critical, which has to be both clear and easy so that people know what they are paying for and how much they are costing. It also aids in transparency and accountability as well. The customer should also have 24 hours helpline number, so that if they get up into any issues, they should be in a position to call and get the appropriate help. Placeholders and area surrounding also influence in a way that people should feel safe, and then they should not have any unnecessary garbage or any other disturbance, which I think you also mentioned in your write-up, Professor, that, at least you should have some sitting places, some offering of, cleaning area or windshield wiping. So all this basic hygiene should be available so that people get attracted to the area and they spend a significant amount of time when they are charging.
Yeah, I was talking about overhead cover, just basic overhead cover. But
Yes.
I mean, there's one thing that I think you all missed, and that is that there's something called provisioning. So when you pull up to the station, you have to affiliate the station to your car. And the way people do that today is with an app. So they got an app on their phone and they're pushing a bunch of buttons. Tesla has automatic provisioning. So they recognize the car is recognized by this charging station and is automatically provisioned. Okay. That needs to be standardized across the entire industry. Guess what? I believe it's the IEEE has created a standard for automatic provisioning. Okay. We need to specify that future charging stations be equipped for automatic provisioning.
There was one issue which was coming up, Professor, that, Tesla is offering specific charger for its vehicle. How does the general public charger offer to this, provisioning to a whole lot of different auto manufacturers? So that is one
Raj,
thing.
you stole my idea. You stole my words. Perfect.
How does that happen? It's called an industry standard. It's called IEEE standard. So
Yeah,
that's how, Kia and Hyundai and Chevrolet and Toyota can all adopt that standard. It's like, how does every, car operate Bluetooth? Bluetooth, an industry standard. I mean, your phone and your car, independent of where they came from, should communicate with each other, right?
Yeah, I'll be coming up, Professor. So I have mapped up a BEV, or the battery electric vehicle roadmap, for different OEMs. So today they all talk in different languages today. So it all has to converge into one so that the provision really makes sense. So yeah, that's a valid input from your side.
I have a question here, Raj, if you don't mind. I know I'm killing your time. So, Professor, the Tesla connectivity happens without application because Tesla vehicle goes into a Tesla station, right? But I believe
it was known as a proprietary solution.
Yes. But I believe that if a Tesla goes to a public station or a charge point or an Electrify America, it doesn't happen that way. Then it doesn't, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So that's
when you own the infrastructure like Tesla with their superchargers, and you design the vehicles, you have the opportunity to create a proprietary solution to have them communicate. Now, these generic stations on the road, they're not going to be given the proprietary protocol, right? So this is what's going to happen. The standard protocol is going to supplant the proprietary one. The Tesla chargers are going to have to eventually talk the industry standard protocol. I have to say, I've only got 2 or 3 minutes left, guys, so I don't know if we can conclude quickly.
Do you want me to reschedule another meeting with you, Professor? Because I have a couple
of
I think
so. If you want to do it maybe later today, maybe around 4:30 or so, that would be fine. I just don't want to cut you off too quickly here. One thing I will mention is that, first of all, I think the Raj presentation should come before the Koti presentation, because I think the questions I had during Koti were answered by Raj, right? So either we flip that order, or you integrate those two presentations, right? Makes sense. Not having two presentations, have one, but have literally, if you have to alternate slides, here's Koti's slide, here's Raj's slide, here's Koti, here's Raj. But if you put all your slides together and integrate them properly, you might find that you have a much more compelling presentation. I think you need to have certain points that you're trying to get across. What is the teachable moment for the city of Chicago? Are we really going to have only 100,000 EVs by 2030? If you've got 1.4 million?
Yes, 1.4 million.
That's less than 1%. That's what, less than 10%, right?
Yes, less than 10%.
Less than 10% EV in 8 years. Does that make sense when gasoline is $6 a gallon? It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense, right? So I think you need to either convince yourselves that you got the right numbers, or update your numbers to show that, hey, in reality, we might have 20% or 30% or 40% EVs in the next 8 years, in which case your numbers are blown out of the water, and you're already blowing their numbers out of the water, right? The Koti was presenting, how do you incentivize individuals to adopt EVs, right? I think you also need to address how do you incentivize companies like ChargePoint and EA to come in and build infrastructure, right? What motivates them, and what motivates the government to convert their bus fleet, right? And what is that going to take in terms of infrastructure, publicity, marketing? What's the normal loss of buses? I mean, are we replacing 10% per year? Are we replacing 5% per year? What's the normal replacement rate for cars? If it's got a 14-year life, okay, that means 7% are replaced every year. In 8 years, you're going to replace 56% of the fleet, okay?
Yeah.
And if you're replacing 56% of the fleet in 8 years, and you're only growing that small number, which is less than 10%, that means that all these other cars that are being sold in the next 8 years are going to be ICE. They're going to be non-battery electric.
Non-barrier, yeah.
And I don't think that makes sense either. I think there's pent-up demand. People are sitting on their money. They're waiting for EVs to come to fruition. And that's, I think, why you're going to see an explosion of EV sales. So why don't we set up some time either tomorrow, Raj, makes sense? Or
Yes,
later
Professor.
today, maybe 4:30. Okay.
Yes, Professor. I'll set a time with you. No problem.
So I got to run. Take care, guys.
Thank you.
Professor, can we submit the final documentation by tomorrow?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
By tomorrow's fine. Absolutely.
Yeah. So
Okay.
we'll again submit 2 different documentation, I believe.
That's
so
fine.
yeah.
But think about how I'm more concerned how you're going to present to the city. I want you to have a powerful presentation to the city,
Sure.
not 2 suboptimal ones, but one powerful one that really gets your point across, that shows you guys were working as a team and shows that you've actually sequenced and thought out what the message is for them. Okay.
Fair enough. Yeah. Thank you, Professor.
I got to run.
Thank you, Professor.
Bye.
Bye-bye.